have a confession to make. Before gracing your lives as the undisputed #1 wrestling YouTube guy, I led a very different life. I was still involved with wrestling, but you wouldn't know it was me. As a young lad, I worked the mean streets of the Tijuana independent scene, getting my face kicked in every night for 30 pesos and a 6-pack of Modelo, if I was lucky. It was a wonderful existence, and I felt like I was about to reach that next level. And then, the dream came to an end as I lost a mask versus mask match to our dear Peligro. Just like that, El Hombre El Cartelero was no more. The Mexican fans were just begging to see my face, as they are for most luchadors. There's a built-in intrigue to wrestlers who wear a mask in the ring, and unmaskings are a big deal and big business the other side of the Rio Grande. They can also be a big deal in pro wrestling hotbeds like the United States and Japan too, depending on the circumstances, and all 3 countries have seen historic unmaskings go down. They can happen as a result of a match stipulation, occur unexpectedly in a match itself, or even take place outside of wrestling itself. I'm El Hombre Cartelera from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 most historic wrestling unmaskings. Join us. Number 10, Kane. Alright, so we'd seen Glenn Jacobs unmasked before he transformed into Kane, but that doesn't make his 2003 unmasking any less historic. Jacobs first graced WWE screens as evil dentist Isaac Yankem DDS, and then inspired chancers everywhere with his turn as the fake Diesel. When the Big Red Machine debuted, however, the internet hadn't yet ruined wrestling for all of us, and so it wasn't exactly common knowledge who the man behind the mask was. There'd been a few attempted unmaskings of Kane over the years, including The Undertaker removing it at SummerSlam 2000, and X-Pac taking it for a trophy in 2002. We never saw his face though. And we desperately wanted to, since, according to the legend, the Devil's favorite demon wore the mask to hide disfiguring burns he had suffered in a childhood fire. Eventually, Kane was forced to remove the mask after losing a World Heavyweight title match against Triple H on Raw. Per the stipulation, Kane took it off and revealed not much, actually, besides some smudged eyeliner and a skullet that Jesse Ventura would be proud of. The storyline explanation was that he was never actually burned, and it was all in the big monster's head. Kane subsequently donned the mask in later years. Number 9, Psychosis. While the New World Order and Goldberg get a lot of the credit for the success of WCW, people would not be remiss to mention the efforts of the talented group of cruiserweights who made Nitro so exciting. Providing cutting-edge car crash-style action before Hogan and the boys sauntered out to collect their massive paychecks, the likes of Dean Malenko, Ultimo Dragon, and Rey Mysterio presented a style that a mainstream American audience simply hadn't seen before. Chief among the contributors to the mayhem were the luchadors, who immediately caught the eye not only with their death-defying high-flying moves, but also with their colourful masks and outfits. One of those who really broke out of the pack was Psychosis, with his bodysuits, heavy metal hair, and horns immediately grabbing the attention. The costume was a big part of his appeal, so naturally WCW decided to strip him of it when they booked him to lose a hair versus mask match against Billy Kidman on a September 1999 Nitro. It was sort of pointless since it was on free TV and had hardly any builds, but it was still a sight to see. Naturally, Psychosis was released a few short months later. He donned the mask again for his entrance at ECW One Night Stand in 2005, famously being told to put it back on by those tactless folks in the Hammerstein Ballroom during his match with Mysterio. Number 8, Dr. Wagner Jr. Dr. Wagner Jr. is likely a name unfamiliar to many watching this, not because you're all filthy Philistines, but because the lucha legend has never wrestled for WWE, WCW, or even ECW. He did show up for Impact and MLW in recent years, however, but he did so without his iconic mask. The son of the legendary Dr. Wagner, Jr. spent most of his career wrestling in Mexico and Japan, capturing titles in CMLL, AAA, and New Japan. Since his debut in the late 80s, Wagner Jr. has had many high-profile mask matches at major events. Invariably, he would win, forcing his opponent to either unmask or shave their head, but all that changed at Triple Mania in 2017. Paying off a storyline that had begun a whole year earlier, Wagner squared off with Psycho Clown in a mask versus mask bout in the main event. To be fair to him, Wagner did manage to go almost half an hour and battled valiantly before losing and taking his hood off. If it were me having to fight a terrifying Psycho Clown, I reckon I would just quietly piss myself and throw in the towel at the sound of the opening bell. But hey, he's not me, and the Good Doctor continues to wrestle unmasked under the new moniker Ray Wagner. Number 7, Tiger Mask 2. The original Tiger Mask, portrayed by Satoru Sayama, was one of the most revolutionary wrestlers in history and completely changed the face of junior heavyweight wrestling when he exploded onto the scene in the early 1980s. Sayama's run under the hood was rather brief, however, and he left the company in 1983 after growing wary of wrestling's backstage politics. He later wrote a book called Kayfabe, exposing the wrestling business as a work, and the rights to the gimmick were bought by rival organization All Japan. The gimmick was then given to Mitsuharu Misawa, a promising young upstart who was then on a foreign excursion in Mexico. Misawa wrestled as Tiger Mask from 1984 until 1990, moving up a weight class to the heavyweight division in that time. But wearing those furry ears wasn't a guarantee of success, and Misawa, eager to prove himself as himself, asked his tag partner to unmask him during a match. It was a shocking moment as Misawa threw the mask on the ground and continued to wrestle without it, winning the match. Misawa would go on to challenge childhood hero Jumbo Tsuruta and establish himself as the company's ace, while the Tiger Mask character reverted back to New Japan, the guys next being donned by Koji Kanemoto. Number 6, Hooven to Guerrero. There is a belief in some American wrestling companies, at least there was in WCW, that masked wrestlers have a natural ceiling since the audience can't see their face and thus their expressions. The thinking is that it's hard to invest in a babyface masked wrestler, for example, because viewers are unable to see the pain they're in when they're taking a beating or the fire in their eyes when they're making a comeback. There might be some truth to it. I mean, I know I would rather watch a handsome unmasked wrestler than a handsome masked wrestler, because I definitely want to see his handsome face. But there are plenty of examples to the contrary. Luckily for him, Juventud Guerrera is one former WCW star whose career wasn't badly hurt by unmasking. Losing a mask versus cruiserweight title match to Chris Jericho at Super Brawl 98, Hoovy had a sort of boy band charm to him that was ready to be exploited. The unmasking was still historic since Guerrero was one of WCW's top cruiserweights and a big star in Mexico, but his career was just fine afterwards. I mean, apart from the drug-fueled rampages and firings, that is. The Juice has since remasked for his work on the independent scene. Number 5, Jushin Liger. Like Tiger Mask, the Jushin Thunder Liger character was directly transplanted from the world of anime to the squared circle. With his intricate outfit and years ahead of its time style, Liger was a must-see performer and became the linchpin of New Japan's junior heavyweight division, putting on countless classics and racking up title and tournament wins like I collect vintage coins. Coin collections are really cool, shut up. Though the man behind the mask, Kaiichi Yamada, had wrestled for some years without the mask, it was hard to imagine him without it as he completely transformed into Jushin Liger. And Liger did his best to keep the mystique, keeping the mask on at all times. He also won 2 mask versus mask matches in the 90s, beating Chris Pegasus Kid Benoit and Tiger Mask 3. During a match with the Great Muta in 1996, however, fans finally got a look at his face when he transformed into alter ego Kishin Liger, tearing off not just his mask to reveal a painted face, but also the top half of his bodysuit too. Until his retirement in 2020, the world saw a few other glimpses of the evil Kishin Liger, and though partly obscured by the paint, they gave the fans a look at his mug. Number 4, Blue Panther. Bucking tradition somewhat, Blue Panther became a lucha libre sensation despite not belonging to a famous wrestling family or being trained by a famous luchador, as was the norm. Despite that, he received strong notices from critics in his early years, who pointed out that he was as talented, if not more so, than many of the other veterans he shared the ring with. In fact, the only real criticism he came in for was for his mask. Inspired by his hero, the luchador Anibal, Blue Panther's choice was, well, a blue mask with a basic panther design, which was routinely mocked for being a bit shoddy by Mexico's wrestling journalists. But sometimes the simplest things, like a good your mum joke, are the best, and Panther proved to have remarkable staying power. Like most all-popular masked grapplers, he found himself fighting to keep the mask on, putting it on the line in many stipulation bouts. He was successful in all until the main event of CMLL's 75th anniversary show in 2008, where he lost it to Villano V. Easily my least favourite of the Villanos. I'm quite partial to a bit of Villano 3 myself. He continues to wrestle unmasked while his sons Blue Panther Jr. and Black Panther carry on his legacy by wearing a mask similar to their father's old one. Number 3, Eddie Guerrero. Despite coming from a family that was practically royalty in the world of lucha libre, it's hard to imagine Eddie Guerrero wearing a mask. I mean, imagine not being able to see that cheeky little grin or being unable to fully appreciate such a marvelous mullet. Eddie had a great run in New Japan in the 90s as the masked Black Tiger, nemesis to Tiger Mask, but in the United States he has never worn one. During his early days in Mexico, however, Latino Heat did hide his identity as Mascara Magica, aka Magic Mask. I don't know what exactly was so magic about it. Did it do card tricks? Did it make him gurn like a green-faced Jim Carrey? But it was a popular character nonetheless. However, when Eddie left CMLL to pursue a career with rival renegade outfit AAA, he had to leave the gimmick behind. But he did show up for his AAA debut in the guise, voluntarily unmasking before his match, becoming the very first person in lucha history to do so. Eddie then wrestled under his own name while performing south of the border. Eddie did wrestle with a mask on for one match while in WCW under the name El Caliente during his feud with Rey Mysterio. Number 2, El Santo. Much more than a mere professional wrestler in his native Mexico, the masked El Santo became a cultural icon, a mythic folk hero figure, as well known for his exploits on the silver screen as his matches in the ring. The Saint, clad in his basic silver tights and mask, was a career technico, or good guy, enjoying an enormously successful career that stretched across 5 decades. Part of the reason for that success might have been due to his commitment to keeping the mystique of the character alive. Santo was known to never remove his mask in public and went to great lengths in order to hide his appearances from just about everyone. That included, for example, getting a different flight to the rest of the crew so that his colleagues wouldn't see his face when he was required to take his mask off in order to pass through customs. Santo also defended his mask in dozens of matches where it was placed on the line. But it didn't take an opponent to finally get him to remove it, as he did so himself voluntarily a year after retiring. For the first and only time, Santo removed his mask during an appearance on the talk show Contrapunto, exposing his face without warning as a way to say goodbye to his fans. Tragically, a week later, he passed away from a heart attack. He was buried, naturally, in his mask. Number 1, Rey Mysterio. With the money he's made from the royalties on selling replica copies of his masks via WWE, Rey Mysterio could probably buy a holiday home in Monaco and have enough cash left over to get himself a solid gold toilet if he so desired. Amazingly, considering what a cash cow it has proven to be, Rey's former employer made the decision to take the mask off him for no real reason other than Eric Bischoff thinking he was a good-looking kid. He had tried to get Mysterio to unmask previously at Halloween Havoc in 1997 before changing his mind at the last minute. The Master of the 619 wasn't so lucky in February of 1999 though, as he and Conan were booked to lose a hair versus mask match to the Outsiders. Had Mysterio's team won, Miss Elizabeth would have been shaved bald. Mysterio's unmasking was perhaps not such a big deal in the US, where the traditions of other countries are not always so well respected, but it meant a lot in Mexico, where Mysterio is rightly revered and unmaskings can massively affect a wrestler's popularity. Considering he's went on to be regarded as one of, if not the biggest wrestling star to come out of Mexico, it has to be viewed as one of the most historic unmaskings ever. Rey was upset with the decision at the time, but has since put the mask back on and laughed all the way to the bank.